Welcome back to the GTN Show, and welcome back, James. I got to say, I was very envious of you guys out in St George.
Well, it was good to be back at an Ironman World Champs, but don't worry, Mark, there's another one coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, well, I reckon that's probably enough of the Ironman World Championships for now. We talked about it quite a lot. It's time to look forward now to the SUB7 and SUB8 attempts and the championship.
Yeah, the SUB7 SUB8 is really heating up now. 2.5 weeks now before that big attempt to break those time barriers, and the teams have been announced, or the supporting teams for those athletes, and it's pretty much a who's who of pro cycling.
Yeah, I really can't wait for that. We also have an amazing display of sportsmanship at the WTCS Yokohama event this weekend. We've got some new hot TT tech, and our very own Heather Fell has been taking on Lionel's team at the PTO Pro-Am event in LA.
Okay, first up, it's time to look at what we've noticed on social media over the last week, starting with this. Good news for Gwen Jorgensen. We actually met with her last week in St. George. She did a little video for us. You can watch that now on the channel. And she's just announced baby number 2 is on the way to join big brother Stanley. Pretty exciting news for the team there.
Yeah, congrats to Gwen, Patrick, and obviously Stanley. And she has even said, obviously, it's just around 2 years away from the Olympic Games. Obviously, will require quite a quick comeback, but it's still on the radar.
Yeah, she's hoping to make those Olympic trials after the baby is born and get back to racing as quickly as possible to qualify for the Olympics 2024. So we wish her all the best with that, but mostly all the best with the pregnancy.
Yeah, awesome. Now, this weekend we had WTCS Yokohama and an incredible battle that we'll go through later on in a bit more detail between Hayden Wild and Alex Yee, and it was fantastic to see just the level of sportsmanship of Alex Yee grabbing a bottle partway through the run and handing it back to Hayden Wild, and Hayden patted him on the back and said thanks, as they're obviously chipping along at probably sub 3 minute per K pace.
Exactly. It was very impressive and great sportsmanship in hot and humid conditions from what it looked like. Moving on, and Carl Smith, who recently lit the show up a little bit at the World Championships, has announced that he's a sucker for punishment and he's heading straight to the championship this weekend in Samarin. So yeah, we wish him very luck, and he's going to have some competition there though, because soon after his announcement we saw someone else's announcement. Yeah,
Gustav Eden obviously unfortunately didn't race at the Ironman World Championships due to illness, but he has said, right, I am ready to go, and he has signed himself up for the championship. So there's going to be a very tough battle there. I think, interestingly, just having Carl Smith there after not only having raced the Ironman World Championships, but I think in his own admission, blowing up quite spectacularly to try and recover this quickly for a big race just a couple of weeks later is quite a big ask. So
got his work cut out from. Yeah. I mean, Gustav's recovering from illness, but I think he's going to feel pretty fresh for that distance.
Moving on, something I spotted I thought was really quite cool in terms of marketing is Oakley with their new shades. It's kind of a retro pair of sunglasses, the Sub-Zero, and they've brought them back with a modern twist.
The Re-Sub-Zero, they've called them, and they're marketing them with this augmented reality. Apparently there's some, when you get the box, you can put your phone on it and this hologram pops out of it. Really cool. And they actually did it in Times Square in New York, a similar 3D hologram effect. It was really cool. This is the future. We're going to walk around with our VR goggles on and see the whole world in augmented reality.
It's very cool. Also, we had the night of the 10,000 metre PBs on Parliament Hill Athletics Track in Hampstead Heath, London. This has been running since, I think, 2013. We even had the likes of Alex Yee doing this last year or the year before last. But I thought this was quite cool. The winners get basically their weight in beer. And to do that, they literally get on the podium at the end and sit on a seesaw, and they pile beer onto the other end of the seesaw until it levels out. It was Yemen Cripper that took the men's win in time of 27 minutes and 16 seconds, not half bad. And Jessica Judd took the women's win in 31 minutes and 22 seconds.
I guess with top runners, you don't have to give them that much beer. I mean, they're pretty lightweight.
Probably be sharing that one out, won't they, tonight or over the weekend. And finally, finally, I'm a bit of a sucker for mountain biking racing. I know you enjoy watching it too. We've got the XCO World Cups on at the moment, and the latest round just this weekend in Novo Mesto. And our Nino Schurter, if you aren't aware, is 9-time world champion, also Olympic champion from Rio. He was having an absolute stormer at the weekend, really laying it down to the likes of Tom Pidcock, and then unfortunately got a puncture, which he actually blames himself for and says, I was trying to test the other guys, point them in the wrong direction, and I was the one that suffered the puncture. He ended up over a minute down, because he had to ride most of the lap with a flat tyre before getting a new wheel, and then rode his way back up to the front group. Very impressive. Finished third.
You don't hear a lot of triathletes saying that the puncture was their fault. No, not something that triathletes do.
I mean, I know this has got nothing to do with triathlon, but I just think we can all respect the amount of, just legendary moves there. They're just
we'll tie it in because Mark's planning to do an Xterra and he's getting some tips by watching some.
Okay, with St George done and dusted, it's now time to look forward to the next big up-and-coming event, the SUB7 and SUB8 attempt. We've got 4 athletes, Nicola Spirig, Kat Matthews, Alistair Brownlee and Kristian Blummenfelt, all trying to go sub-7 hours for the men and sub-8 hours for the women. Essentially think of the Breaking 2 attempt or the Ineos 159 for the marathon, but for the Iron-distance Triathlon, essentially sort of throwing the rule book away and simply seeing how fast a human can go with human power.
Yeah. So like you imagine that, or you saw that sub-2 attempt, they had like an echelon of guys running in front of the runners. You can have a similar thing here, but for triathlon. So you got swim and you can have pacemakers, you can have the bike and obviously a peloton, I suppose, they're going to form. And then the run, ideally, they'd form a similar echelon. But with the sub-2 attempt, they had 10 runners and they were swapping in and out. Here you have 10 athletes for the whole thing. So you've got to really think about where you put your swimmers, whether you put any swimmers.
And who you pick.
Or you can pick someone who's a really good triathlete and they can do the swim and some of the bike and the run for you, or you can pick someone who's just a swimmer, they do the swim and they go lie down and while you carry on with the bike and run. And then obviously the more people you use for the swim and the run, the less people you have for that peloton on the bike. So it's really tactical how you use them. Well, this week they've announced their teams. So now we can start getting an idea of where the tactics are going to go and how people are going to kind of plan their day and get to those times. It's pretty interesting as you unpack it.
Yeah, now before we get to that though, because we do say about throwing the rule book away, I mean, there are some limits. We're not suggesting they're suddenly going to start racing around the swim with motorized propellers on or something.
Well, they could, because you get a 5-minute penalty for using illegal equipment, and I argue over 3.8 Ks, if you use one of those little motor things that the divers use, you could gain more than 5 minutes. Throw it out and go, you go, give me my 5-minute penalty. No, I'm joking. There are rules, and they've given specific time penalties for various things like using illegal swim equipment or getting forward propulsion from someone else, for example, getting pushed on the run or getting touched on the bike and getting pushed along, because that's obviously not allowed. You can help your athletes, or the pacers can help them by drafting or be next to them, even handing them bottles apparently or fluid. They can even have a biker riding next to them to give them fluid, but there's time limits on how long they can be next to them, etc. There are rules. It's not just free for all, do whatever you think will get you across the line, because basically then we would see motors.
But it is important because obviously everyone's trying to be quite creative here and really trying to look for the marginal gains. And yeah, like I say, some rules have been thrown out of the window here. So they have had to be fairly strict things like you must still wear a top during the cycling leg. That would be a 5-minute penalty. They do say, though, that you can use whatever depth of wheel on the front and rear, which means you could go with a track bike setup. You can have disc on the front. I'm not sure you'd want to do that outside.
And no brakes. Yeah, save that weight. No, you can also use any thickness wetsuit you like, and I think we're going to see some technical innovations on this. In fact, we might see some bike technical innovations too. There's been quite a lot of talk about getting in the experts. Apparently, some of the wetsuit sponsors are actually making specific wetsuits for this, and with no limit on the wetsuit thickness, you could have a nice thick front with nice flexible arms, and essentially just like a bodyboard.
Be like floating floating along the surface trying to get their arms in the water.
So it's all very interesting, and obviously we're pretty excited to see what actually happens on race day. It's a little bit of an unknown. We are hoping that they go under those times, and then there's obviously the chance that they go so far under the times that it's just like, yeah, they use too many innovations.
Should we have a look at these athletes, though? Because this is really exciting. If you hadn't been able to tell that we're excited already. So Alistair Brownlee's pacemakers include the likes of Alex Dowsett, who really doesn't need much of an introduction, time trial specialist, previous cycling world hour record holder, and just obviously a bit of a all-round cycling legend. He's also got the likes of Charlie Tanfield, GB track cyclist, very well decorated, 2018 Commonwealth Games individual pursuit champion. His brother Harry Tanfield, who rides for Team Quebecer Next Hash, Dan Bigham, John Archibald, the list goes on. And interestingly, he's also got Javier Gomez in his team, along with his brother, who are going to be helping on the swim and the run.
This is what I'll say is interesting on the tactics, because he's got all cyclists except for one runner, which is Phil Seesman, who is obviously a very quality runner. And then he's got the rest of cyclists except for two triathletes, which is Javier Gomez and his brother, Jonathan Brownlee. So they're obviously going to do double work. They're going to do the swim and then obviously rest up, I guess, and join him on the run. But that means he's only got two people for the swim. There's no Diamond Echelon. They're obviously just going to be swapping out in front of him. And then he's got those same two guys for the run later on. And only two guys to get you through a whole marathon. They're going to be doing a lot of work to help them get through that run.
But there's only so much you can do as a runner.
True, yeah.
So, you're not traveling at the same sort of speeds for aerodynamic gains unless there is a really strong headwind. I think you're mostly there for pacing and sort of motivation.
Yeah, but he's got three runners and only two swimmers, and I would definitely go the other direction.
Very true.
Then again, Alistair Brownlee on the swim, maybe he doesn't need that much help.
Yeah. Well, moving on, Kristian Blummenfelt, mostly made up of giant Cadex riders. Many of them actually seem to be part of Matt Bottrell's team here in the UK, and Matt also himself is going to be racing. Dare I say it, maybe the oldest athlete who's going to be racing this. Sorry, Matt. Interestingly, no Gustav Eden. Obviously, he's going to be racing at the championship this coming weekend. But he has got professional open water swimmer Lars Bottelier, who took 5th place at the 25-kilometre European Champs in 2021. But he's a De Boer wetsuit ambassador, so I think he's pulling upon those those ambassadors of his current sponsors.
But that's his only swimmer, which means he's just going to be sitting on Lars's feet for the entire 3.8 Ks, we imagine. And that's quite a lot of work for Lars to do.
Women, Nicola Spirig has got actually quite a lot of triathletes in her team, the likes of Amelia Rose Watkinson, Els Visser, Imogen Simmons, Lucy Buckingham. A lot of triathletes in there, but she also has got a few pretty strong powerhouse cyclists in there as well.
She does. She's definitely gone the cyclist, runner, triathlete, but basically the whole group of ladies is going to stay together, we think, for the bike and the run, just switching out the pacemakers, maybe taking a lap off as they need to, but getting back in and doing the whole job together. And I guess as far as teamwork goes, everyone knows where everyone else is and might pay off. There might be a good strategy.
And then Kat Matthews, we've obviously spoken to her a bit already. She's got a big group or a big contingent of UK time trialists. Time trialing scene here in the UK is very strong and very competitive, and she's really pulled upon that. There's a few big sort of time trialist names here from the UK, as well as a couple of triathletes in there, likes of India Lee and Sarah Jane Walker to help her there on the sort of the swim and the run. Also Ruth Hassel, sorry, I shouldn't forget Ruth, who's going to, from what I understand and Mark's explained, sort of going to be static in front of Kat for a majority of the ride, so Kat hasn't got to worry about that wheel changing in front of her. Very interesting tactics.
Also, only two swimmers and they're triathletes, so maybe costing a bit of time on the swim there. I'm not sure I understand the tactics here. I would definitely, maybe it's just because I don't like swimming, I would definitely go for more help on the swim and less help on the run. The run, like Mark says, there's not so much you can do, but you can really draft in a swim. So interesting tactics. All of this happens on the 5th of June in the Decker Lausitz in Germany, with a backup day on the 6th of June in case there's bad weather. We don't want the weather to affect the ability to break this time. And you can go and watch it, but we'll actually be there behind the scenes, bringing you some of the behind the scenes action and what they actually get up to. So stay tuned for that.
Now for What the Tech, and starting off with a bit of, industry talk, and this is from Form Goggles, the kind of augmented reality display goggles that we've had on the channel before. They've appointed 2 established business leaders within their board. So we've got Ed Baker, who is head of international growth at Facebook, has been VP of product and growth for Uber, and also has more recently started up the Any Question app. But also very interestingly, Eric Min, who founded Zwift, has also joined the board.
Yeah, this is interesting because if you don't know, Form Goggles are the head-up display goggles where you can see your whole session in front of you, the speed you're swimming, how many laps you've done, etc. right in front of you inside your goggles. And now they've brought on these heavyweights of the industry, I suppose, to take them to the next level, to scale it up, to go global. And it's really interesting to see where this tech goes from here.
Well, exactly. It's exciting that these big business leaders also see an opportunity here. So they're obviously looking at this going, they're onto something.
Yeah. Let me put my ideas in here and then you'll see where this goes. So we are excited to see where that goes. Speaking of exciting tech, the Giro kicked off last week, and with the first Grand Tour of the year, there's always new tech.
Yeah, we had stage 2 was the TT stage, which is very interesting for us because we get to see all the new TT tech. And we had a new prototype TT bike from Colnago, the TT1, which had disc brakes.
First time.
Also, we had new Campagnolo parts. So we had the Bora Ultra WTO disc wheel set, and also some TT brake levers.
Yeah. And Villiers too had its new Turbine SLR TT bike out on the TT course, which we may see on a triathlon sooner or later. It says it weighs 300 grams less than the old Turbine model, and the down tube has no routing for cables, which is, there's all these new group sets which don't need routing for cables, so welcome to the future.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense if you can save weight because no one really needs that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, also some new wheels from Black Ink. They're zero disc rear wheel. God, all over the place with our pronunciations. But it's an asymmetric design with a bit of a lens shape to the design. So quite cool. And they say it saves around as much as 20 watts.
Wow. You don't even have to pedal anymore when stuff's saving
crazy.
you 20 watts. Also, Ceramic Speed's OSPW with that aero fairing, which we actually saw in the flesh at the World Champs in Utah. It's pretty cool, bit of tech. And it was on a few pro bikes at the Giro. We got it before GCN did. We were pretty stoked about that. But it's now out in the wild, and apparently it saves 2 to 4 watts, or the OSPW saves 2 to 4 watts. But Ceramic Speed haven't actually told us how many watts the new aero carbon fairing around it saves. They're keeping that very tight-lipped. Now it's time for the race news, and we had WTCS Yokohama, the first in the WTCS series for this year, and it's going to be a bit of an exciting year this year. Starting with a wet race for the women. It was 19.7 degrees in the water, which meant wetsuits, which is pretty unusual.
Just below that threshold.
Yeah, very close to that threshold. They all came out of the water pretty much together in a big pack. There were a few slower transitions and faster transitions, but pretty much all out together on the bike. But obviously on those wet roads, it was hard for them all to stay together, and the ladies who were more comfortable on that kind of course did start putting some pressure on. Unfortunately, Laura Lindemann, who's been in good form, crashed and took out Cassandra Burgond, who's been in even better form, winning the Arena Games just a few weeks ago in London. They were both taken out of the race. Off the bike in the top 5 together were Georgia Taylor-Brown, Flora Duffy, Leonie Perriault, Maya Kingma and Emma Lombardi. Georgia Taylor-Brown went for a flyer out of T2, and she put a bit of time into the girls, but it all came back together by halfway, all 5 of them running together, and then Georgia Taylor-Brown put in another surge to take the win down the blue carpet, winning that first race of the year. Leonie Perriault was second, Flora Duffy rounding out the podium for the women.
Yeah, well, just a few hours later, and we had totally different conditions for the men's race. So much so that it was a non-wetsuit swim. Apparently it had gone up by 0.3 degrees Celsius. I mean,
and the roads were completely dry. The rain had dried up, and they had no worries whatsoever. After changing the course for the women's race to take out the technical sections, there was no water on the course for the men.
Now, Vincent Louis did his best to string the field out on the swim, despite apparently having some weird sensations during the swim with his heart, some really high heart rate, and apparently that stayed the same on the bike. He unfortunately pulled out later in the race. But the group pretty much all stayed together, and it really came down to a run race. And it very quickly was Alex Yee and Hayden Wild that pushed ahead of the rest. And we saw that act of sportsmanship on the run, with Alex Yee grabbing the bottom pass back to Hayden. But then the game was on, and it was a really, really impressive sprint finish between the two. Alex Yee taking the win, Hayden Wild in second, and then Leo Berger in third.
Yeah, exciting racing there. It's going to be an exciting season.
It really is.
I think, we also had the Herbalife LA Triathlon happening on the same weekend. On that side, Jamie Riddle from South Africa, who I actually have a strong connection to because he was a little 10-year-old kid when I was a pro, and I've actually got a few photos of him standing next to me somewhere in my vault where he was 10 years old and meeting his hero, and now he's winning races, which is pretty cool. He won that ahead of Eric Lagerstrom in second and Stephen McKenna in third. On the women's side, Victoria Lopez won that one, and Amy Sloan in second with Amelia Watkinson in third.
Yeah, and at the same race, we had the PTO Pro-Am event. So PTO brought together these teams to compete against one another, which combined a challenged athlete from the Challenged Athlete Foundation, a pro athlete, the likes of Lionel Sanders, Daniel Bakkegaard, and an amateur, in many cases, a celebrity, the likes of Heather Fell.
Yeah, Heather Fell, the celebrity. And Paul Felder, the UFC star, was another celebrity. You can catch all of that in action because we made a whole video on it. Heather was out there, and they can bring you all that action this weekend, so tune into the channel to see what happened there and what Heather got up to, whether she won that race.
Yeah, well, it was close, with no spoilers. We also have a new race, Challenge Montpellier. So Challenge have just announced the addition of a new long-distance race. This is going to be, obviously, in Montpellier on May the 7th, 2023.
Yeah, pretty exciting course. They're going to swim in the Mediterranean and then a single loop 180k bike in that region, which is pretty rare these days on the courses. I mean, Ironman France is just down the road and similar, but pretty exciting course, I think.
It's a beautiful, beautiful area.
Yeah. Bucket list item, another bucket list item.
Yeah. Well, upcoming, we have Ironman Lanzarote, also Ironman 70.3 Chattanooga North American champs. We've got the likes of Flora Duffy down for that, with Holly Lawrence, Paula Finlay, and obviously a stacked men's field. But I'm very excited about that women's race. It's
going to be one to watch. Yeah, definitely see what kind of form Flora Duffy can do in the 70.3. She's obviously trying to get that qualification for the 70.3 World Champs at the end of the year. And then we also have, as we said earlier, the championship in Samorin with Gustav Eden, Carl Smith, which we spoke about earlier, and a few other names on there. Magnus Ditlev, Florian Angert, Frederick Funk, Christian Hogenhaug on the men's side. Also Lucy Buckingham,
defending champion,
Fenella Langridge, Emma Pallant-Brown, Sarah Perez-Sala, and Lisa Norden, also fresh off the Ironman World Champs. So pretty stacked fields there. That's going to be one to watch.
All right, now time to take a look through some of your photos that you've sent in to us. You can send in your own using the photo uploader. The link is on screen right now or in the description down below. Starting off with this one this week from Michael at the Port Stephens Triathlon. He said he's 15 years old and just completed his first triathlon. It was a sprint distance, but I'm planning on completing my first standard race later this year. Thanks for inspiring me. Brilliant. Good stuff. Well done.
Well done, Michael.
Yeah, keep up the good work.
Yeah. Our next one is from Tyler, and he's from St. George, where we just came from. Or this photo is from anyway. It doesn't actually say where he's from. Happy photo prior to a brutal day of racing. It was a brutal day of racing. He does look pretty happy in that, so clearly he hadn't started yet.
Yeah, I think he's mostly happy because he has just kitted his bike out with a ton of ceramic speed gear. He's got, on that Cervelo P Series, he's got a ceramic speed bottom bracket, OSPW, and chain.
Yeah, that's what you call Expo free speed.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it helps though. So yeah, let us know how you got on in the comment section down below, and also send in your photos of you doing anything triathlon related, racing, pain cave, kit, you name it.
Okay, now it's time for the caption competition. Remember to get your answers to this caption down below in the comment section. Last week we had this one of Daniela Reef holding up the number 5. Can't imagine why she was holding up the number 5. Mark, can you remind me?
Maybe because she's 5-time world champion, James.
Ah, you see, that's why. So Appetite for Rose actually said, it's 5, James, not 4. Yeah, That's a little dig at me. I'll cop that one because when I interviewed her after the race, I said she had won 8 World Championships and it was actually 10. How awkward. Anyway, moving on. Jackie Schaefer said, when you've reached the last table at the aid station and you still haven't been able to grab a cup. Desperation.
Yeah, I know that feeling. But 2 great captions actually this week from the Dom Louis. First one, I passed 5 of the pro men on the bike course alone. Did she? Maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Probably did. But the winning one, from also the Dom Louis, it took me 5 goes to get today's Wordle right.
Oh, yeah, good one. Wordle.
Actually, was 5 for me today, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm done today's
Poor
Wordle.
day for me. Poor day.
I'm going to go beat Mark now.
Yeah.
Well done, the Dom Louis.
Very good.
Get hold of us and we'll get a cap or bottle out to you for winning the Caption Competition. This week, we have this one from WTCS Yokohama. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. Maybe the feeling you get when they tell you it's no wetsuit.
That's quite good, actually. Yeah, I can imagine a lot of athletes feeling like that. Well, you do your best, leave your captions in the comments section down below. But that is it for the show this week. As I've mentioned already, we've got lots of content still to come from the Ironman World Championships in St. George. One of which is actually a week in the life with pro triathlete Leon Chevalier, who finished 6th in his debut Ironman World Championship. So very impressive. So it'll be very interesting to see what a week of training looks like for him. We've also obviously got the action from Heather at the PTO Pro-Am event in LA to come too.
Yeah, that's exciting. Still haven't found out how she did. Yeah. Don't forget to head over to the GTN shop if you're looking for any merchandise such as the kit that you see us wearing in our videos or even these nice jumpers. And if you're looking for something to watch right now, Mark actually did a little feature on the Ironman World Championship winning suit that Kristian Blummenfelt was wearing, and Mark tried it on. Did it fit? Didn't fit. Didn't fit, no. Yeah. Not surprised. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more triathlon related content and we'll see you next week.